Hey guys, it's GameMaker Tutorial X here with another video in the Intermediate Playlist series. I am alone this time. I'm not with my friend recording this, so it's just me. And in this tutorial, we're going to be going over the GML scripting language, just the basics, so that in the advanced series we can cover more advanced things. But I'd like to make a quick update for the channel before I go on. I will do more tutorials on any sort of game making there is, and that includes Java, C++, and other programming languages. If you request tutorials for those, I will make them. I just need one person to request it, and feel free to request any sort of game making videos or more suggestions on what to go over in Game Maker and anything like that. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're just going to go over the basics of scripting today. So I'm in a new project in Studio, and once again, you don't need Studio. You can just use 8.0 or 8.1 or whatever. So we are going to create movements through the use of scripting. So go ahead and create Office Sprite, and once again, make sure you watch the basic tutorials and the tutorials before this. Actually, more just basics, so you know what I'm doing, because I'm not going to be explaining it. So go ahead and name this one Sprite Character, and we'll make it a quick character, which is going to look like shit, but it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. Sprite is going to make my robot guy from the last one, except this time he'll have a long head. And I'm not going to be doing animation either. This is just to show the scripting language. So even when I'm doing bad, I still take my time, which is kind of funny. I'm just going to use the line tool for this. And line. Okay. Line. Alright, there's our guy. You can scale him up if you want. Show preview. Looks good. We don't have any animation, so we don't got to worry about speed. So go ahead and check that. Make sure to center it and hit OK. Next, create an object. Maximize that. Object underscore character. And our sprite is character. Alright. Now, we are not going to add anything in here. And let me just maximize this. We're not going to add anything in here because we're going to use entirely scripting. And actually, we're going to need one thing. But otherwise, nothing else. Add a step event, and we'll come back to that later. Next, hit OK and create a room. And basically, that's it. As you can see in the preview, we just got our guy. Room, you can rename that because that's good habit. We'll just name it level 1. And now you can hit check. And now we will go into the scripting language. So up here, you can click the create a script, or you can right click scripts and hit create script. Alright, now scripts is kind of, if you've used any other programming language, it probably looks a little bit familiar with line numbers. And if you type certain things like if, else, they kind of highlight to a certain color. And it is. And up here you can go ahead and change the script name, and we're just going to change it to script underscore movement. Okay. Check it so it refreshes. So this is kind of like the, I don't know, IDE of GameMaker. And IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. So you don't really need to know much about this because it does look for basic errors, but to actually like compile this, you have to run the entire game. So you won't know real errors until you run the game. So it's not like a traditional compiler that people who program are going to be used to. So the GML language is extremely simple. If you've done C++ or Java, this is going to come really fast and easy to you, but I'm going to go really slow for people new to programming. So the first thing that we're going to learn about is an if statement, okay? And back in other tutorials when we did the test chance action with the little dice, or the die, whatever, that was called a conditional statement, and it tested a condition, which was if it rolled on a certain side out of however many sides, it would execute the following action or the following block that we did. And remember that a block is just these two things, but yeah, it's not good. But a block is just these two things, and it just means more than one action to execute if these conditions are true. And feel free to post questions in the comments if that is too fast for you. But in the scripting, it works the basic same way. To do a conditional statement, now programming always consists of what are called keywords, and usually they're highlighted. Like if we type if, it glows orange for Studio. I think it glows blue in GameMaker regular. I don't know. It glows something, but it glows a color. And I think you can change the coloring, but worry about that later. All you should know is that if is a keyword. Now, this is really easy, like I said. So, since we're doing a conditional statement, we say if, and then we put our condition. So, what do we want to happen? Well, if the user presses right, for example, the right key, we want our character to move right. There are two ways of making a condition for an if statement. You can put opening and closing parentheses, and inside of these parentheses you can put your condition, or you can just not use parentheses and then go with that. But I like to use parentheses, and this is a really good habit to get into if you want to get into more advanced programming. Languages like Java and C++ all use parentheses. So I'm going to do as much advanced coding style as possible. GML offers basic styles, but I'm going to go ahead and try and explain to you the more advanced styles so that you understand when you go into something like C++. So if, and then this is where we put our condition. Now ignore this errors because we haven't been done yet. So go ahead and type if keyboard, and notice this should highlight, or it should for you, and then this little thing will pop up and giving you on the left what's called a function. Now a function is basically like that block I showed you with the starting and ending block. A function is just a name that has a block that executes certain things. Okay, it's basically just like a name to a block of statements that when you call it will do. So there's a lot of different functions we can use. We can use keyboard, I mean they're all really clearly named so you can see what they do. Keyboard key release. We're going to use the first one, keyboard check. And as you can see, it glows because that's built in. Now keyboard check uses what's called actually opening and closing parentheses, much like this if statement. Now all functions, you call them by typing in their name and always parentheses. Now sometimes in these parentheses you have to give it what's called an argument. An argument is a value to help the function do better its statements. Alright, and I'm sorry if that's confusing, it probably is. But basically this means if, and then you can kind of ignore these parentheses, but that's just basically inside of the condition. If this keyboard check function is true, then do our block. And a conditional statement has a block. The only thing we have to do is give check its value to use. Now, all keys start with VK underscore. And as you can see, this little thing pops up again, and it gives you all the keys that you can use. So just look for the right key for now. Actually, I think it's just called right. Yeah. And that glows red, because that's what's called a variable, which we'll get into too. Now, we have our condition done, and we have our function, and we give it its argument. And remember, that's just a value that it uses in its block. Now we have to give if a block to use. And once again, I'm going off the style of more advanced programming so that when you get into it, you're not as confused if I use things like then. And just go ahead and ignore that. So to make a block, it's opening and closing curly braces. And a curly brace is this thing. Okay? Now, in between these two things is your block. Treat this like the green arrow up starting block in the actions, and then the other one like the end of the block, okay? Now you can kind of space this out where you want, wherever feels comfortable. You could put all your stuff in here, or you could put this one down here and work inside here for organization. I like to put both of them down here, so it's kind of easier. So it's like, here's the conditional statement, here's the condition, and then here's the block that we want to do if this all becomes true. Okay, and I'm just gonna tab and make sure, no matter what you do, make sure it's in between these two curly braces. Alright, so let's go ahead and just type. Now the way we do this, everything is based on X and Y grid, right? So whatever script we attach this to, there's built-in variables called x and y that go with the current object that this script is attached to, and we'll attach it later. So all we have to type is x plus, or no, x equals x plus, and then whatever, how fast you want to go. So let's say 5. Okay, so x equals x plus 5. This is called a statement. X is a variable, and basically the way you assign variables, and variables, if you haven't learned algebra yet, variables are a placeholder for a value, and they get their name because they are always varying. So that means that we can reassign x to a different number. Now the way to add to x is you can either do x equals x plus 5, and I think that's really confusing. I like to use what's called a conjunction, which is plus equals, and this basically means the same thing as x equals x plus 5. It's just faster, and it's what lazy people do. And I'm lazy, so you can use this plus equals 5. This is the value that we're adding to x. If you just leave this as equals, then every time you hit the right key, you're going to be up at wherever 5 is on the x-axis. Make sure it's plus equals or x equals x plus 5. Now this semicolon signifies that this is the end of one statement, and to move on to the next line. Now we don't actually have to do anything else, but it's just good habit to put this there. And GML allows you to take this away, but in Java and C++ you have to have semicolons at the end of a statement. Now why don't we put semicolon up here or up here, up here? This is because we have a block. If we just put a semicolon, that would mean end and just keep going. But instead we want it to do multiple statements. So we put it in the block, and we put the semicolons in the block, so it moves through each of the statements in the block instead of just skipping the entire block. I like to call this a line terminator because it just basically just terminates everything else and goes on to the next line. Now, if this is just too confusing for you, you can take that out. But once again, since many of you might, request a C++ or Java tutorial, you're going to want to get in the habit of using semicolons. So we are done with this script. Go ahead and hit check. Now, as I was talking about, we have to attach this script, okay? Our step event's gone, but basically the way you attach things is you go into the control and execute script, and that attaches the script. So we can just hit add event, step, step, so this executes extremely often, so it keeps checking for our keyboard instead of just one time. And just click this, and click your script movement, and that's all you need to do. You can go ahead and run, and you should be able to move to the right after it loads, and as you can see, we can move to the right. Alright, and in the next tutorial, I will be going more over scripting, and I will see you guys then.